Hello my friends, it's Gabriel with The Last Huntsman Outdoors, and I am pretty excited and stoked to get out here and test out a knife that is just on the top tier of knives here, and that is the TRC Apocalypse. Oh yeah, look at that chunk of steel there. Let's get out here and try this bad boy out. All right, so I have the TRC Apocalypse. We're going to just do some chopping here with it and just see how well it can do some work. This is definitely in the medium size survival knife range. And as you guys know, I actually featured this knife on my top 10 medium size survival knives video series. And I definitely do think it's in the top 10 for sure for like a medium-sized survival knife. Now I know what a lot of guys are gonna be like on here is just use an axe, just use an axe, you know, and they're just like shitting and pissing themselves while watching this video. But this is a knife video, not an axe video. So if you want to watch an axe video, go watch an axe video. And I could probably have done this a little faster, but I've injured myself before and I'm trying to be a little more cautious. All right, here we have the TRC Apocalypse. It's Elmax steel, right around a 1/4 inch thick, 6-inch blade, choil. This one has G10 grips on it, but there's several different variations of this. You can get it with the Apocalypse finish, and they got different, you know, micarta and G10s, and just pick your flavor with it as far as that's concerned. Now, this is a very, very, very beautiful knife. Has just some really fine just details and such, and the attention to detail and finish on this knife is absolutely amazing. Like I said, Elmax steel, about a mid saber grind. I don't know, a mid to high saber grind. Just a chunky knife. Now, I really do like the way they did the G10 on this. A lot of times G10 is just too smooth for me, but they put a decent amount of texture and such on that G10. The sheath it comes with is a Kydex sheath. This is a really nice Kydex sheath. Has a nylon little webbing back for it to attach to your belt. All right, so another task I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a bit more batoning with it. With that mid-saber grind, it actually does baton pretty well. That was one of the things that I noticed with this knife, even when I was doing the Showdown with it, is that it does baton pretty well. I'm gonna say you did pretty good. All right, so something about the TRC Apocalypse that I've never seen out of any knife, and I have to give it to TRC on this one. Just kind of show their quality and ability to make blades, I guess. But this obviously has a crowned spine, as you can see. But it's the only crowned spine that I've ever found that can still strike a ferro rod, and it actually strikes it really good. So that is pretty surprising with the TRC Apocalypse. I don't think I've ever seen that before. All right, so another task I'm going to do with the TRC Apocalypse is I'm going to just do some slicing. And kind of discuss the ergonomics a little bit. So the grips are just flat on the sides. And you would think that that would kind of have some hot spots, but the way they have that milled and curved around the edges there actually fits pretty good in hand. The choil, I don't know what I think about the choil on it. Like, I'm kind of a hit or miss type of guy with choils. They either work or they don't work with the knife, and I don't think the choil's too bad. It's not ideal, in my opinion, and that's just me subjective there, you know. If it works great for you, then that's awesome. I've always been kind of hit and miss on choils, and on this size of knife, I don't mind a choil. However, it's just something about that choil, the way it's set up on this particular knife. It is a little awkward. Now, when I was doing some chopping too, something to kind of take note on, the way that flares out at the bottom, it actually retains in my hand pretty well to do kind of some light chopping stuff. You know, this ain't going to be like a heavy chopper by no means. It's only like a 6-inch blade, but it will do the work that you need to for like a mid-sized survival knife. And as far as slicing, it's not the best slicer, honestly. All right, so like I said, I did throw this knife in my top 10 mid-sized survival knife showdown video. So video series, actually. I will link that video in the description below, but I will also kind of discuss one thing that I noticed with this knife. When I did the combatives kind of tactical portion, now I don't know if TRC directly he markets this knife as like a tactical knife, but that's kind of what my impression is kind of a survival tactical knife. And one of the things that I will say is this knife, because it's a 1/4 inch thick and just a balancing point on it, it wasn't exactly the fastest in hand. And for whatever reason, the way they did that tip, they kind of reinforced the tip, but it wasn't exactly the best stabber. Now, me personally, if you told me, hey, I could have a super strong tip or one that's like really fine and gonna stab really well, I'm gonna go with the super strong tip. So to me, that's kind of a little bit of a moot point, but it didn't really lend itself, at least if I remember right, when I did that video series, to the most fast and agile blade. It kind of, there's just something about the weight and balance to it that doesn't really, to me, doesn't lend it to the best tactical knife. All right, so another task I'm going to do with the TRC Apocalypse is I'm going to try to do some feather sticks here. And I admit that I'm sometimes not the best guy in the world at doing them, but surprisingly, this knife is doing a pretty good job. I do find the edge geometry on this knife is just a little weird. Now, if I am just borrowing this knife, I did not buy this knife. If it was mine, I would probably reprofile the edge a little bit, honestly. I think the edge is pretty shallow, and I've seen that with a lot of European knives, honestly, is they just kind of use weird edge angle. I would probably, I got this owl talking to me still. It's gonna sound a little weird, but I've always had owls come up to me while I'm out in the woods. So I don't know what that means, but like even in daylight hours, I'll have owls just fly right up to my little shed. But yeah, it actually does some pretty decent feathers. Like I said, I would probably reprofile it a little bit, but that being said, it's still pretty nice. All right, so here I have the TRC Apocalypse, and I'm comparing it directly to the SE6. And as you guys can see, you wouldn't think it at first, kind of looking at them separately, but when you put them side by side, these knives actually kind of has a lot of characteristics. They're both roughly right around a 6-inch blade. They both are close to the same length overall. They both have a choil. This one's obviously a full flat grind. This one's kind of a mid-saber grind, and this one is thicker, while the SE6 is only 3/16 thick. And I know some people's heads are exploding that I'm just even comparing the TRC. And don't get me wrong, I like TRC knives. I really do. But there is kind of like a cult level fanboy status with them too. You could get like 3 or 4 of these for the price of this. So while I think this is a cool knife, the SE6, at the end of the day, does what this does for a lot less. So don't feel like you have to go out and, you know, spend a lot of money on a TRC to be in the game. The SE6 is going to do what it does. All right, so another task I'm going to do with the TRC Apocalypse is I'm going to do some notches here. Start off with the square notch. Pop it. There we go. Pardon me, my little bushcraft table here is a little janky. Does the trick, but pretty nice little square notch, really. Let me get like more of like a tent stake notch here. Alright. This is a piece of hardwood that I'm doing this into, so pretty decent little tent stake. Actually, let's do one more little test. Let's do a little bit of cross grain batoning here. Let's just see if I can plow through this thing here. See how well that LMAX holds up. Oh yeah. Just fine too. Alright, so another task I'm going to do with the TRC Apocalypse. I'm going to do just a little bit of tip testing, lateral tip testing. Now, obviously, I'm going to say you can break any knife if you really try to. But that being said, I've done this with knives that are a fraction of the cost of this. And I'm not going to lie, this is a $500 knife. Like pushing $500 all said and done. Like by the time you order it, ship it, taxes and all that, it's going to be a $500 knife. So me personally, I think it should be able to take some damage and abuse. This is probably where that reinforced tip, oh, this is a little cringy, at least. And let's check her out there. Perfectly fine still. So I will give it to TRC. They know how to do their LMAX for sure. Alright, so I'm going to wrap up the review on the TRC Apocalypse. My overall thoughts and impressions on this. Well, right off the bat, this is a gorgeous knife. This knife is definitely grail status. So like if you just want to like go on pure dick measuring contest and, you know, show up in the woods and kind of show off your knife, this is definitely it, and it does perform decently well. I had it in my top 10 survival, mid-size survival knife showdown video series for a reason. This knife is really awesome. I like this knife a lot. I personally would like to own one. However, as I kind of mentioned earlier, this is pushing a $500 knife. Like last time I checked, they're, you know, $475, $480 or so. And like I said, by the time you ship it and pay tax and all that, it's going to be a $500 knife. Well, there's a lot of like custom handmade knives and that are less than that. And I know some people are going to say, well, they're handmade. Kinda. I mean, they're produced in a factory with a series of guys. So yeah, are they kind of handmade? Are they kind of, I would say they're kind of a semi-custom production knife is where I would categorize this. So me personally, I think the biggest gripe I have with this knife, at least as far as like suggesting it to you guys, is if it was like a $350 to like $400 knife, I would say get it all day long. It being a pushing $500 knife, I think I'd rather have like a Glock 19 or something for that money. That's just me personally. So not saying don't get it. I'm saying it is very expensive for what it is. If it's LMAX steel, that's the issue that's making it cost so much. Me personally, I would say, hey, TRC, you might try doing this in like 80 CRV2 and see if you can like jack the price down just a little bit. But tell me what you guys think. I know there's kind of a fanboy cult following the TRCs, so I'm sure this video is going to get a little bit of flack. But tell me what you all think. If you like this, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. With all that being said, be prepared both physically and spiritually. God bless and carry on.